Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza, the writers and directors of Warfare. It releases wide in theaters April 11th. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We know you guys have been busy with screenings and media tours, so we appreciate the time.
Good morning. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course.
So, Alex, you started as a novelist, I'm reading. And when did you know you wanted to get into it? Did you think when you first started you'd want to get into screenwriting and doing movies and directing?
I didn't really think about it at all back then. I started writing, I wrote a book. I was a backpacker, and I wrote a book about backpacking.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Where did you backpack?
Southeast Asia, mainly. And particularly the Philippines. And then the book got made into a film, and as soon as I saw a film being made, I thought, oh, that's what I want to do.
This is what it is, right?
Yeah. It's like a big group of people. It looked like a lot of fun. You write a book on your own. Films you only make with a large group of people. I thought that's what I want to do. So then I just switched instantly. Wrote a screenplay 28 days later, zombie film.
Mm-hmm. Great movie.
Just stayed in it.
Yeah.
Then.
How'd you know how to write the screenplay? Do you have to Google how do you write a screenplay, or you just
almost? But the same way as writing a book, I would take books off the shelves and look at them.
Right.
So when it came to like how to do dialogue, he said, she said, whatever.
Right.
I would just look at how other people did it, and then with a screenplay, I got hold of a screenplay and read it and thought, okay, so that's how it's laid out. And,
right. Wow.
So, Ray, give us your background. As when did you know you wanted to become a U.S. Navy SEAL? How did that germinate?
And thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. I mean, not only is it a sacrifice, obviously, to go into the military, but then you're like, I want to be at the highest level. Like, when did you know you wanted to become a SEAL?
Yeah, it was pretty early on. I mean, I grew up playing sports, baseball, as a kid, all the way through high school, played travel ball. So I was always very competitive. I had an older brother who played baseball, 4 years older, so I was always trying to compete with him.
Right.
But so I knew I wanted to serve. I just didn't know what. And there wasn't a lot of information on the SEAL teams. But, going through different units, I just came across, the Navy SEALs portion of this book. And just it just attracted me. I didn't know what it was. So I started getting older. I started doing more research. And it was that time to sign up for the Navy. Went to the recruiter, got more information. And some of it was a leap of faith. Once I got there, I started to learn more about the maritime component of the SEAL teams, the other overachievers, other very competitive mindsets, and I felt it just like dovetailed right in.
So for you as a SEAL, which was harder, the physical or the mental? Because look, what I've learned is through mostly movies, sometimes books, that the mental can almost be tougher than the physical portion of what they put you through to get to that level of being a SEAL.
Yeah, it's the mental 100%. Like anybody could do one day of buds, right? You throw, people come out, sports teams,
fit guys or whatever.
Olympic teams, they come out and they do these little things.
Right.
Like, I didn't.
Tiger Woods comes out.
Sure, yeah. And I've seen him on the compound a few times.
Okay.
Great dude.
But, really?
Yeah, I mean, he's respectful. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean,
to those guys, he's going to be respectful.
Yeah. He was kind, and people who were interested in meeting him, he took the time to say hello. But it's the grind, right? It's a slow grind of every day for 6 months, and that's just the basic. And then you go on to advance, which is SEAL qualification training, which is like another 8 months,
right?
And so it's a long.
Isn't it a process
day.
even before you even get there? Because I know guys that have tried to do it, and like for a year, there's like legendary trainers out there that train you before you even try to do it, type thing. Did you have to go through that? Or
No,
you just
that
right
didn't really exist. When you got there, they give you all the tools that you need. Really, I mean, like I get it, wanted to know, preparing, but sometimes that can not
too much
be in their favor. Yeah, because it starts to. I almost said the F word.
Yeah.
It starts to do a mind trick on you where it's almost like, hey, you're going to go to the dentist to get your wisdom teeth pulled out. It's more about the thought of it that's actually more scary than doing it itself.
All right, so let's get to how you two hook up. So you're a novelist, movie maker. You start getting into helping out in movies as a military consultant, which I don't know how you make that transition. You must meet somebody. How does that work?
Active Valerie, which just came out, I think in 2011 or 10. That was my exposure to filmmaking or this version of storytelling, which was very compelling to me. That's how I got into the industry.
Got you.
So
then you were a military advisor to Peter Berg.
Correct.
Lone Survivor.
That was my
and
second
by the way, that's a
film.
great movie, Lone Survivor.
Yeah, thank you.
But so, man, you've had some unbelievable experiences, man. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, thank you.
So let me ask Alex this. So Alex, you're one of the writers of Warfare. Obviously, it's in theaters April 11th. This movie is basically culled from Ray's experiences. You don't have a book or like a file to go back on. You basically just have to, I guess, interview Ray and talk about his experiences that he had and that his brothers he was fighting alongside, in that spot. Like, what was that challenge like for you to come up with a screenplay where you basically have to just lean on his experiences instead of a book or something else?
Yeah, for all the details.
Well, it wasn't like writing a normal screenplay, that's for sure. And I wasn't really writing; I was listening. I think it was just different sort of skill set. It began with Ray and I sitting down for a week. Ray lived back then, sort of homeless now, but lived in Los Angeles. And we just sat down together for 1 week, and Ray taught me through everything in as much detail as possible.
How did you know that this particular story was perfect for a film?
It wasn't, didn't know that, but knew that Ray wanted to tell this particular story. And we had sort of dovetailed interests. I wanted to do a very accurate, very honest war film. So I went to Ray, who I'd got to know by then, and said, is there a story you would want to use in such a film? And so he had this story.
I think all of us that have seen it, and I'm reading reviews and others, the one word everyone always, I think, uses is intense, the intensity of it. How do you capture that? You make the most mundane things, right? You're sitting there on the edge of your seat as your sniper guy is there, and he's just like got the little muscle thing, right? Because he's there for hours, or just the sipping of the water. And I'm sitting there as a viewer, and I'm going, oh,
something's coming.
Something's coming.
Yeah, like the building
because
of the tension
they're building
was
up the most mundane things.
Yeah. Do you know, the honest answer to that is that I think that, say you take a big action scene from a big movie.
Yeah.
I would say I'd lay a bet most times people are watching that sequence feeling bored.
Yeah.
Because they've seen it before and they're almost just waiting for it to end. Their adrenaline levels are not spiking.
Yeah.
And it's because they've been through it. It's like a sort of funny dance. It's like a ritual. They've just been through the ritual too many times
Right.
to care. If you do it on reality and people pick up, hang on a sec, this film is not working by the normal rules of normal films. Suddenly someone scratching their head might have a different level of intensity and meaning. And you don't know, is that guy about to die? Is it about to blow up?
Every moment
is that
you keep
the
waiting.
last thing you're about to see about? So it has a whole other language, which even in a big,
What I was struck by was I felt like I was like in the room with Ray and all of his, comrades. Like you feel like you're right there as everything's happening, as everything's unfolding. Was that like a conscious effort as you were writing and directing Warfare to basically place the audience right in there with your group as it was happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think our guidance or like our light tower essentially was Elliot. Elliot doesn't remember what had happened, so I almost wanted like to approach it like looking at a microscope for him because I wanted him to see what we saw, hear what we heard. So that kind of laid everything out of how detailed we were going to be about it.
Can I ask you just the answer might just be CGI. How do you do the jet scene?
CGI.
Oh,
It is CGI.
Yeah,
that was incredible.
there was no jet. We got to fly that low and that far.
Yeah. And then how do you choose the locations? Like I'm watching the movie,
We
it's
built it.
intense, but then I'm also thinking like, how do they make this thing happen?
We built it. That was just outside London, and we discussed shooting it in the Middle East in certain places, but actually all we'd get to keep was the sky. And the sky's the sky, pretty much wherever you are in the world, right? So we built it in London, and we tried to build a film set which was like a location. So when you walked onto that street or into that house, it was as if you're walking into a real street or a real house.
Right.
I don't, I know you probably have tons of sound engineers, or whatever, but the jet's there for, I don't know, 3 seconds, maybe a couple times in the film. The sound quality and the CGI, it's so realistic, kind of like what you were talking about. You feel like you're in that experience.
Well, we had Ray always there to say, well, this is what it sounds like.
Were you,
So I'm sorry, it was all filmed in London?
It was all filmed in London.
Really?
Yeah.
were you, just from reading about it, it doesn't seem like it was, but it doesn't seem like you were trying to make a political stance one way or the other, anti-war, pro-war, whatever, but it does scream out at you the atrocities of war, which I do think is important for people to see and understand.
Copy that.
Right?
Mhm.
Is it hard for you to watch the movie to relive the experience?
No, it was harder to film it because I really had to unpack all these emotions that I had been pushing down for almost 20 years. So it was therapeutic. So it's still difficult to watch sometimes, but not as hard as it was filming it. Elliot was there. Some of the guys in real life were there to help us film it. So yeah, there's a lot of discussions and these feelings that had to be addressed.
When you enlisted and you had these, you were challenged or whatever, you were always competitive. Did you realize what you were getting into?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But it's not. But even the ones that were telling me at the time was pre 9/11.
Yeah,
They had seen combat. They probably read books, but it wasn't from experience. It was just
right.
we train, we do these, we learn skill sets.
Right.
So you don't know it, and they set up training scenarios to try to mimic that, but not. Yeah, it's all just anecdotal.
Right. I mean, it's not
At that
until
time,
the S hits the fan and it's real.
Correct.
Do you, when you're in the middle of it, do you feel any regret? Like, why am I doing this?
There's tons of regrets. Yeah, it can be as small as like I should have went left instead of right, or I should have moved faster. I wish I would have trained harder ahead of time. I wish I would have mentally prepared better. Just when something that catastrophic happens, you definitely start going through like what could I have done better. So that's kind of part of the therapy.
Right.
Decades later.
Were any of the actors former military? Was there anybody former military? There was. There were a couple.
Which one?
Yeah, there were.
Yeah.
So some of the
Oh, the British guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a few British guys.
Oh, there was. Okay.
We're joined in studio by Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza, the writers and directors of Warfare. It's in theaters April 11th. So I found out this nugget that Alex apparently at times completely removed himself as well as the studio because he didn't want anybody who didn't have the real life experiences that Ray and his group had. Like, was that difficult at all for you to just step back because you're a writer, you're a director, like you're used to being like super involved with everything? Was that hard for you to just take a hands-off approach there?
it wasn't at times, it was throughout the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not allow myself and I did not allow anybody else to have input into what you could call the story. So nobody was allowed to say anything about the sequence of events or what happened who was not there. So that's started like that at the beginning and ended like that at the end. And the only people who were allowed to have that kind of input was Ray and other people who were in or next to that house at that time.
And you guys obviously linked up with A24, the studio. Like they've had remarkable success, everything, everywhere, all at once. Won an Academy Award for Best Picture. You did Civil War for A24 previously. So like a good marriage there between you guys and A24.
They're super trustworthy. Not always true in film land.
Hard to find sometimes.
Yeah,
it can be. Yeah, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And so when they said very early on, I said, look, it's a strange film. We'll make it as cheap as we can, but we need like total freedom. Like nobody, like I said, nobody is allowed to give a note except Ray or his colleagues. They got it. They immediately got it. And Ray and I were responsible. We made it for a price. We made it sensibly. We made it on budget, on time. And they were just happy.
By the way, we should say a couple of us loved Ex Machina.
Yep,
Oh, thank you.
loved it.
Great movie.
Fantastic.
So have you been pleased so far with the early reception?
Pleased and relieved. Yeah,
Yes.
because it's a very strange, intense movie, but it's also like a really personal movie. Like,
Right.
I can't stress enough. You imagine me and Ray flying out to San Diego for the first time to show it to the group of guys who were there
Right.
and some of their colleagues, and you suddenly realize what we've done it as carefully as possible, but we're holding the worst day of these people's lives sort of in our hands. And my industry, and now Ray's industry as well, has a long track record of screwing with people's lives and and taking liberties and
Right.
How did they
distorting
all
and-
receive it?
Yeah. What
You
was
know,
that
you have a
like?
brotherhood there. How did they all receive it? Were there different reactions?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of them came out to assist, not all of them, but they, some comments were that's about as close as we can get it. Yeah, thank you. That's what I remember. That's what it felt like. So yeah, thank you for doing that. So yeah, comments like that. Yeah.
Well, that's got to feel good, right?
Yeah, because it was for Elliot initially. There's some secondary, tertiary kind of effects of that. But yeah, I mean, Elliot was the main reason everybody knew about that. And, the interviews that we had to do, it was in support of making this very accurate. So yeah, it felt good to know that he approved of it. Absolutely.
Do you see more like hookups in the future? Have you mined for more information that there's more stuff there?
He's what am I allowed to say? He's got a killer. He's got a killer project
that he's working on.
Yeah, you need me.
Yeah, but I think we'll always be there. Yeah,
thanks.
hopefully one day. I think we're always there. If he ever needs anything, vice versa.
Right.
I think there's a relationship there.
You got a lot of movies in you.
Yeah, it's I want to give back to the community that provided me. Though there were bad times, there's a lot of relationships and skills that I have that I use in the film industry now. But yeah, there's stories. 20-year war. It's a really long war. It's a lot of stories.
Right.
A lot of people were lost, and I think families need closure. So if I can help provide that,
I don't need to get too personal here, but how do you do mentally each day? How are you?
Now I'm good. It was a struggle. We're very we're competitive. I don't like admitting that I'm broken or there's something wrong with me because I'm not supposed to be that way. So I had to first recognize that there was a problem. And so, it took time for me personally. I didn't have a huge safety net getting out like some people do, which is great. So yeah, it took a while, but the friends, they were always there, and I just needed to open my eyes and see that help.
And you said this whole process is therapeutic. This is a joke, but maybe the next movie you could do is a rom-com.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
you got a rom-com in you?
I think I
It's
do
not a
that.
rom-com.
I think I can pull off a rom-com. Yeah.
Well, Alex and Ray, we appreciate the time. It's Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza, the writers and directors of Warfare. It's gripping. It's intense. It's intimate. You need to go out and see it.
It's real.
When it's definitely real and authentic. Go out and see it when it's in theaters, April 11th. Thank you guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We
Thank
definitely
you.
appreciate it. It's Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza. Warfare hits theaters April 11th.